lad.
Do you know where the afters is?
One, two. Oh, there you go.
Oh, no.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
There you go.
We're rolling.
We're rolling. Right, we're here then.
Here we are.
Well, Huxley,
Hello.
Michael, whatever you want us to call you, welcome.
Big Huck seems appropriate.
Big Huck.
Big Huck.
No, Michael's
In the building.
Michael, Huxley, welcome to the afters.
Thank you for having me, guys.
You're very-
Pleasure to see you.
You're very welcome. It's been a hot minute since we've caught up.
Yeah, I don't even know how long, but 3 or 4 years
Well,
at least.
it was obviously definitely before. No, it wasn't. We were supposed to see each other at ADE, but one of those ADE trips where we just never
I was
happened.
only there for about 24 hours, well, less actually.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
I got to defected
As I was leaving.
as you were
Well, I
leaving,
just left,
and then I was
yeah.
going to come to your party, as was
Oh,
Sean.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
We were
yeah,
getting,
yeah,
I
yeah.
forgot about that. Yeah, but
Don't worry, lads. It was a good party without you
Michael,
anyway. Don't worry about
this
it.
is honestly,
shouldn't have brought it up.
No, but what happened to me is that
proper.
I went to Slap Funk on a Friday. I don't drink anymore.
Nice.
So
You've not
I-
mentioned.
No, I will every single episode. And I went out and I lasted until 2:30.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it was, but it fucked me. The next day. Mary was like, "I really want to go out, Mrs." And we were going to go to the party. I said, "All right, I'm just going to get comfortable in bed."
like you do.
That's a pre-game that I've
Well,
not
I
heard
think
of.
she did, and this was 9:30. So I was in bed on Saturday at 9:30 p.m. That's ADE.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, why not, I suppose? I mean, that was savage for me. I thought I was a younger man that day for some reason, and I didn't book a hotel, so I flew in at like 7 a.m., went to my friend's place who I was running the party with, and then, straight from the party to the airport, and it took me about a week to recover. I just can't do it anymore.
I never actually spoke to you about that. I wanted to know how that went because we spoke prior and I said, it's okay, you can drop your stuff off in hours.
Right. Yeah.
And you were to come and chill, whatever, but that obviously didn't happen.
I just didn't have time. Like, I don't run many parties myself, but actually getting to see the other side of it, I realise why I don't, because it's an absolute nightmare. But yeah, no, it was good. I mean, that's the first thing for the label. The label's pretty new. It's coming up to about a year, I think, in a couple of weeks, and we got a chance to do it through my friend Walter S over there, and it was great, but the actual day of it was just nerves, and then I didn't really get to enjoy enjoy the party kind of thing, but it was still, it was fun.
Well, before we get into everything, obviously we know who you are.
Yeah,
but
I hope so.
Yep, kind of. I think. But for those of the listeners at home who don't, who the fuck are you?
That's a bigger question than I'm willing to answer right now, but I'll tell you my backstory.
Yeah, of course.
So my DJ name is Huxley. I kind of started releasing music when I was 16, 17 under a different name, UK Garage, and then around 2009 I switched moniker to Huxley, and kind of released on labels like Defected and Ultra, 2020 Vision, loads of different kind of house and deep house and techno labels over the last few years, 13 years, Jesus, 14. And just have toured extensively since then, really, a lot in America, a lot in Europe, and just still going just about, and that kind of sums me up, really. I don't know what else to say. These kind of questions, I always forget something and then someone pulls me up on it afterwards and said, "Oh, you didn't mention that." I'm like, "Well, I forgot."
It's the thing where you put on the spot, right?
Yeah, of course.
That was the put on the spot question. We do it on purpose.
No, of course.
I want to just kind of get a really organic answer. We asked Waf the same question,
yeah, that was a good
and he
one.
didn't shut up for 35 minutes. I don't think.
Okay, yeah, well, good. I'm not
but
that boring.
that was great.
Okay, good.
That was great.
Yeah, that's kind of summed up my life for the last 13 years.
That track, I remember that huge piano track.
Box Clever, yeah.
Box Clever.
Yeah.
I remember that track from like the early days, was it 2012?
It was 2000. Yeah, it was 2013. But we're doing, because the reason I know that is we're doing a re-release package next year.
No way.
For the 10-year thing, Ralph Lawson from Twitter, and I was like, oh my god, was that really 10 years ago?
Wow.
Like, that time has just flown by. I think about all the stuff I've done, and it feels like it's about a year.
Yeah, that's mad.
I know it was 10 years because that was when I was at Egg then, and I think that's when I see you down there.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I used to play there quite a bit at one point. Yeah.
DJ mag parties as well. Yeah.
Yeah. No, the Egg's a great place to play. I can remember the first time I ever went to the Egg. It was an after party from the Quay or the Cross that I went to, and it was like, I think I was 18, growing up in a small village. We've made our like pilgrimage to London. I used to go to raves before that, but nothing like this. And then went to the Quay to see, I think it was Formula or one of those like old parties. And then we went to the Egg afterwards in the after party, and it was like the transvestite after party. And it's like an 18-year-old kid from the village. I was like, okay, cool, okay.
This is what it's about.
And by the end of it, me and my mates were on the podium dancing and doing shots with him. It was fantastic. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I remember that tune was so big. I remember playing it every single week for months, and then when I started to kind of air quotes break through, and then we start, once you get to that level, you start speaking to artists which you've been listening to or playing their tracks for years. I remember like first time I went to work on some tracks with Michael in the studio at his, and I remember being in there, and I'll tell you this now, I was like, I'm fucking Huxley's house making fucking tunes. Who made Box Clever? But this is another thing about this industry. When you start to release tracks and you kind of get in amongst all the circles, you realise that all these other artists are just fucking lads and lasses.
Oh yeah, massively.
They're just people.
Completely. Like you there's, you hear some horror stories about people, but actually on the whole most people are really nice and sound. So most people I've worked with, it's always been like a good vibe and all that kind of thing. I think, like you were saying, you hold these people in such high regard, you put it on a pedestal or whatever. So when you're sitting in the room, I mean, I've had it a couple of times. Like the first time I met Kerry Chandler, for instance, I was like tongue-tied.
And he's one of the soundest.
And he's so nice.
So modest.
I mean, I reckon I was more tongue-tied in front of him than I would have been like Bruce Willis or something. But and also something that you realise quite quickly in this industry is it feels like such a big entity when you're looking from the outside in, but actually from the inside out it's really small. Because a lot of people work with each other that you wouldn't even know have worked with each other in the past. Like you're connected to everyone really, and it's actually so small that it feels probably less impressive once you're actually kind of part of it.
Oh no, absolutely. I found the same. Once you get into like almost like past that threshold of you're now in the mix, you realise that most people are really sound. People talk about the music industry and it's all very backstabbing, and we all have horror stories to an extent, but most people are sound as fuck.
Completely.
And I didn't have that view of the music industry when I was going in. I thought everyone's going to be after my. As in, there's not enough sets to go around. Like everyone's going to. I mean, obviously there's a lot of competition, but once you get in there, everyone is pretty sweet.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, I think the competition thing now, it's obviously really tough, and even when we kind of broke through, I know maybe you were a couple of years after me, but it was a very different landscape now, going back to the breaking in thing. And I feel like, like you say, you get past that threshold and everyone's really nice and sound, but I do think these days it's actually kind of in some ways easier to get past that threshold, but also really, really difficult. Like once you're past it, but you've got to do all these TikTok videos and all this kind of like junk that I would be awful at. Like if that was on me to do that, to break through, I don't even think I would have even got into this position that I'm in now, to be honest.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? When you said that it's a little bit easier now than it was before, do you mean in terms of like the access to social media?
Yeah. I mean, instantly. I scroll on TikTok daily, right? And there's always some young guy kind of posting a track on there, and every so often you see one really pop off, like the Casso thing that is just I think #1 now, or has been, with Ray, which is obviously just a TikTok bootleg. I think it started life as. So that's why it's easier, because you can get eyes on your stuff so much quicker, and it's not like Instagram. You don't even need someone to follow you. It will just come up on their For You page. So it's like, in that way it's easier, but then what I meant by it's harder, then it's hard. I think it's harder to maintain.
Okay.
So like you break through, you have that big record. Like look at some of these people that have broken through, like that A-Craze guy might be still getting paid decent fees, but we've never heard anything since that Do It track really. Whereas before it was a bit of a slower process. You worked your way up through working with smaller labels and bigger. I mean, it still happens, but I think a lot of people now are going for that instant TikTok gratification without thinking, shit, now I actually need to back this up with like a career after this. And I think it's an afterthought, which is, whereas before it was very much of, this is what I want to do and this is the steps that I can do to get there. And it's just a slower process. So you build a bit more of a backbone, more connections, a bit more reality in base in what you actually need to follow up a big single with. Now, I've never had a single that was that big, but you know, if you have that single that's that big as your first single, there's nothing else for people to gravitate towards. So backing it up is quite a lot harder, in my opinion.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah, I would hate it.
Yeah, too right, because then you've just got to make another absolute banger, haven't you?
Well, that's the thing. So what you're trying to say there is there's another outlet in terms of gaining an audience, whereas before you had a track. Let's say it hit top 10 on Beatport or whatever, it's in the underground scene. You hit top 10 or top 5 on Beatport. It did really well. You got booked for 6 months a year, and then you needed to follow it with another fucking tune.
Yeah, completely.
Or another EP or whatever. Whereas now...
But you probably already had that sign before that popped off.
Yeah.
Whereas now, you're getting that track over the... You could do... A friend of mine who I work with, called James, he was like starting a project, and he was just going to do 30-second clips of ideas and post them on TikTok, and then the one that blew up, he'd finish it and like then release it into the world, which it feels like such a weird way to work, because for me, I start an idea and I want to do it, but he's kind of like, well, yeah, but if that 30-second doesn't pop off, then I'm just going to throw it away.
Wow, is that thought process of a lot of artists these days, do you think?
I think it's becoming more and more standard, because I think that, I mean, you listen to all the things now, and everything's a sodding bootleg anyway, right? Yeah. And like
everywhere.
And the reason they're doing that is because, you know, the thought process is, this was a hit. If I use it, this is going to be a hit. And if they don't get that instant like connection, they're afraid to work the record. I mean, I'm probably guilty of this a bit more now as well. They don't put the time and energy. If it doesn't work straight away, that's it. It's finished.
Wow, yeah, that's it's almost like that reinforcement of the track itself. Instead of that coming from within, you're getting it externally. So you're putting it up 30 seconds. If it doesn't get so many likes or views in like a day, fuck it off, start something new. Yeah. That's interesting. It's kind of clever in a way.
Yeah, definitely.
But I suppose it's clever if it takes you fucking ages to finish a tune, like it did for me.
Yeah,
I mean, I've worked in the studio with Huxley before, and it like tunes just like rattled off in like hours sometimes.
Yeah,
you couldn't. But that was never me. That would have probably been quite useful for me to get like external feedback, and then because it might take me a week or 2 weeks to just finish one tune.
I do think it's important to get that external feedback, but the problem is you're getting that external feedback from kind of people that will judge it on their own metrics rather than whether or not it's a good track. And you know, a lot of people just say something bad about it to troll you or whatever it's called these days, and some people will blow smoke up your ass because they feel like they're being nice, whereas actually the outside feedback should come from people you respect and trust.
Well, the feedback I used to get when I was playing tracks out or trying them out, my manager would sometimes come down to the gig and like hear me play them. Yeah. But really, the feedback came from trying a track out in a club.
Yeah.
So you get the tracks, you have maybe 4 or 5 new tunes. It took me about fucking 3 years to make them. And then I go and I play them out, and if I get a good response from the crowd, then it's good. I need to maybe tweak it, or I need something else or whatever. That's the feedback I used to get, and that's how I would develop a tune.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
But now you can make a tune, you can upload it in seconds and get 1,000 people to fucking comment or like or tell you shit. I mean, I suppose, the feedback is never going to be... You can't trust that feedback online because keyboard warriors are prevalent, right?
Yeah,
there's so many of them.
Oh my God, yeah.
Do you think that's changed your like dynamic in the studio, like how you make a track now?
Undoubtedly it has. You know, I think... And it's not maybe, I think for a long time there, when this was starting to become more prevalent, more apparent, I was trying to go for some easy wins. Like, for example, when I signed to Ultra, I did a thing that sampled Tony Braxton. And, like, I would never really have done that in the past. Fine, I use samples all the time, but not gone for something so overtly obvious. And I think that a lot of that is because, you know, once you've had a bit of a peak, and everyone has troughs, but you hit that first trough, and Jesus Christ, it hurts. Like, it hits you like a ton of bricks, right? You think the world's at your feet, and then suddenly, like, less people want to work with you. We're talking about people not being snakes, but also there's a lot of truth in the fact that you get to know who your real friends are when you're going through that real trough. And like the music industry, I'm cool with pretty much everyone, but there's a difference between a real friend, like me and you keep in contact loads. Probably not as much as we should, but we do. Like it becomes apparent quite quickly. But anyway, when you're going through that trough, you'll try anything to kind of try and get back up there as quickly as possible. And for me, a lot of that came through dabbling in tech house, which was not really my thing. I was always house and deep house, but I was just chasing, and seeing things like TikTok, and like even back in those days, it was the tech house stuff popping on Beatport or whatever. Maybe it wasn't the gratification, but it was just a different sound. I definitely chased it for sure. Yeah. 100%.
I mean, that was probably what we did with our Repopulate Mars.
Oh yeah, massively.
That was my style, but it wasn't technically or necessarily exactly what you did, but it was good. It was good for us to do that crossover, maybe. But we're talking years ago. What you're talking about is more like now, right?
Yeah.
What do you think about? Because you played Forward Motion recently.
Yeah.
About parties coming up like that who are sort of trying to bring this research.
It's good. So there's that. I played for those guys, and also I've done one in Manchester called Full Circle.
That's Kieran Sharple's party, isn't it?
It's George's.
Oh,
Kieran's
is it?
not part of it.
Oh, okay.
But he was the one that booked me for it originally, though.
He told me about it, so that's why I got it.
Yeah. But to be honest, the first time I was booked for one of those, I was dreading it because I was like, oh my God, I'm going to turn into one of those DJs that just plays like throwback nights for the rest of my life. I'm going to be listening to the same 20 tunes forever. Like, there's only so many times I can hear Battle for Middle U by Julio Bashford before I want to cut my ears off. Even though it's a fantastic tune, don't get me wrong, I love it. But so it was a bit of trepidation that I actually took that booking. But if I'm honest, a lot of that, the reason that I took it was my bookings aren't as busy anymore, so you need to earn some money, and I thought it would be quite a fun way to listen back to some of the older stuff as well and just have a bit of fun. If I look back, that was obviously when I was most popular in terms of touring, and also in terms of actual my personal taste. I still love a load of those records because they have a lot of feelings for me when I played them at different parties, or even just like knowing the people that make them and genuinely liking them, whatever. But I think they're really good. I think, like, for someone like me, it'd be really easy for me to just, like I say, do those. Yeah. Now they're popping up. They're probably going to become more prevalent because every single one that I've seen has sold really well. Yeah. So promoters... sometimes not the most original bunch. So I can see that popping up. And then there was an offer for somewhere in December, which I turned down because I knew it was just another person trying to jump on the bandwagon. Whereas I'd rather keep with maybe a couple of brands. But it was great fun. Every time I played one, I've had really good fun. The crowd's a bit older, so I don't feel like kind of like someone's dad going into a club as much. I'm not walking around going, you should be really wearing a jacket right now. It's freezing out.
I was a hot cup of cocoa.
I was actually at the Manchester one. I popped in.
Remember? Of course, yeah.
Because it was you, Miguel.
And
Josh Butler, sorry.
Was it Amos? No.
Whiffs and Strays.
Yeah, no. That was the one recently. I can't remember who else it was.
But it was you and Miguel, and I remember... it wasn't much older crowd, so it was all my mates, older, like early 30s, mid 30s, and even a little bit older than that. And it was fucking awesome.
Oh yeah, it's such fun.
As a punter, like it was. I never really went to any parties last year, and I made a trip up to Manchester, and it was really special. All of our old crew came out, hearing tracks. Obviously, like when Miguel dropped something special, the fucking place went crazy. But it was almost like a mixture of mid 30-year-olds, and then you have the 18-year-olds all holding the phones up, but it was the 30-year-olds holding their phones up. So it was like a really weird mixture. You had like half the people going, "Why the fuck's everyone recording?" and then half like, "This is just absolutely amazing." But I thought the vibe was great, and I think
it was fantastic.
It worked.
It really worked, and like it's quite interesting because the Full Circle one in London, obviously run by a couple of promoters that I know anyway, so I was happy to do it. They put such an effort into making it like feel special. It was over 25s, so you didn't have the kids, you didn't have old people feeling like conscious around younger people, which actually I know is maybe a bit ageist, but actually I think it's quite important to get older people out, because you do start to feel a bit uncomfortable in a nightclub if you're surrounded by younger people. It's just a fact. So I don't really go to nightclubs anymore as a punter, you know, very rarely. And it's nice to see that it's kind of, it was a moment in time that people actually feel fondly about. I look back on it and think fondly about it, but actually it's kind of like I never really thought about it as an overarching scene, if you know what I mean. But actually it's kind of nice to feel like the warmth, and you see the people reacting to the old tunes and stuff, and some of them have become classics, and it's nice to feel like I was part of that.
It makes you feel old when you talk about your tunes or tunes of that era being classics.
I know, it's horrible. Well,
that's fucking mental.
I just got a new agent, and who's funny enough called Huxley, which is going to be confusing. But we were having the meeting the other day, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you know, whatever. I've been into your music for a long time." I'm like, "Okay." And he's like, "Yeah, I think I was 12 when I first heard your music." I'm like,
"Oh my god, no!"
Fuck off. Yeah.
Well, that's a different level.
Oh yeah.
What about? I know we're just talking about how old your son is.
Yep, 4.
And I remember when you guys had just got pregnant, and that's flown over. But and obviously we've had COVID in between that time since your young lad was born. But how did Tour life change, or did it change at all once the?
Well, I mean, COVID was great for me because it meant I got to see him kind of grow up. And before COVID, I was touring still a lot in America and stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas COVID obviously put a whole... In fact, I was meant to go to America the weekend it shut down. I was playing at Coda in Toronto, and I was so close to getting on that flight, and obviously I'm pretty bloody happy I didn't. I didn't want to get stuck in Canada for like months. But it meant that I got to see him, like, you know, walk for the first time and not be like, you know, you come back from tour and you're kind of dead for a couple of days every weekend, Monday right off, Tuesday maybe, depending how much you've drunk. Yeah. So actually it meant that I was kind of quite heavily involved and saw him every day and stuff, and actually it was fantastic, you know. And then I've gone back to touring now, not as much, but still touring. Something I would say is because I was around so much then, he's finding it a little bit harder now when I go away for like a week or whatever. He doesn't particularly like it. But in terms of touring, I still tour as much as possible, but also because I'm not touring as much, I don't think it's as much of an issue as it would be if I was still like Jamie or something like that. You know what I mean?
Of course.
Just on, do you have like a sort of recovery, you know, routine that you have for when you come back on tour?
Well, it used to be sit down in front of the TV with a bottle of red wine, to be honest, and get some takeaway in and just mong out for 1, maybe even 2 days, depending how much free time I had.
That doesn't sound like much of a recovery routine, does it?
Yeah, but it makes you feel nice and warm, and while you're in it, it's great.
It's all right, yeah.
But yeah, right now, no. To be honest, I'm still unlike you. I'm not sober, but you know, in the last year, I've cut down my drinking a lot. I was drinking a lot, like every day, basically, like at least a glass of wine or whatever. And then in the last year, I've kind of actually moved over, and even in the last couple of weeks, like I feel like a switch has kind of flicked a little bit. And before, I wasn't drinking, but I was still kind of craving a drink and like finding an excuse. Whereas now, I'm actually finding that I'm like, actually, I don't want this right now. I'm not saying I'm sober, because I'm not, but I think that a level of growing up in my head has happened quite a lot in the last year, and maybe that's because I'm approaching 40 in a couple of years, or maybe it's just that my son is now at school, so I'm feeling like a proper adult, whereas before, before I was just like a 24-year-old forever, well, longer, unfortunately. And so I think that because I'm not drinking as much now when I do shows, it's not taking me as long to recover.
Yeah.
I just need a bit more sleep, maybe, and that's it.
That's good. So you can obviously feel the difference just by cutting down the drinking. The recovery is, you don't have to have, like, you haven't got a set thing in place where you do X, Y, and Z, but you're just cutting down the drinking.
With a kid, you can't. It's quite hard to have like a full recovery program because they won't let you do it.
Yeah. Well, maybe that was probably quite a healthy catalyst.
Yeah.
In order for you to maybe this new, because your son's now what, 4 or 5?
Yeah, 4. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're at school now. Is that right? Reception of year 1.
Yeah, just started reception in September.
So
yeah.
that must be like, that's all new and changing. So now you've got that on your mind, right? I know obviously when they were babies, you still have to do probably much more in terms of physically like looking after them. But you've got responsibilities. Like
massively, yeah. Like it's not just you anymore. You can't be selfish anymore. It definitely as a quote unquote artist, it's quite a selfish career.
No, Hux, you are an artist. There's no quote unquote there.
Well, okay,
you fully are an artist.
I just hate saying it because I feel like a twat. But okay, as an artist,
I'll give you that.
As an artist, like it's quite a selfish career, right? Because even when you're in your home life, if you've got a partner and you're essentially thinking about yourself constantly. You're the product. You're thinking about what music you want to make, where you want to play, where you want to be.
Yeah.
Like your whole focus is on you, which it's a very selfish thing. You're the company, you're the person bringing in the money, right? Whereas once you have a kid, that becomes a lot less important, which is why I think a lot of artists, after they have kids, don't lose something, but maybe if they did, they lose a tiny bit of the drive because they just don't have the time for it. And also it makes you a bit more selfless as a person, which probably erodes that drive a little bit as well, I would say.
So going back then, on the same subject of drinking, let's go back way before you had children. What did you ever have any problems with alcohol or drugs, any dependency, anything in that regard when you were like at your peak, when you were on the road touring gigs and crazy?
I'd hate to. I would say that my relationship with alcohol has always been a little bit kind of temperamental. I would never say I was an alcoholic, but that might just be me not admitting it. But what I would say is, when I was touring a lot, I was drinking a lot. Like, my rider used to be a bottle of rum. Most nights I would finish that. It was a heavy period of consumption for me, and not just alcohol. I was doing coke a lot as well.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I feel like when you're in that bubble of touring and like when you're coming up and everything's new and exciting, and you're getting all those free drinks, it just becomes like a natural part of the tour life. You know what I mean? Like you go into the next club, you've been up for like 2 days, whatever, maybe already, because you've gone to an after party. You're 25, you're just loving it.
Yeah.
And then you start drinking again. And you just keep going, and especially if you're in a tour. What I used to struggle with, and still do actually, is when I'm, say, going to Australia or something like that, you have a bunch of off days in the middle. First tour, fine, you're going to look around Sydney, go to the Opera House, all that kind of shit. After that, though, your friends that you might make there are working, like during the day, or they're doing stuff, so you're just sat in the hotel bored, and my default like motion is just go, oh, fuck it, I just get a bottle of wine and like sit in the hotel all day and then drink, and then that might turn into 2 bottles of wine on certain days if I'm feeling really loose. so like for me they a period which is a real struggle, because boredom, you can't really do. I don't really write music on the road because I just never have been able to, so I'm just sat there watching shit TV and like with nothing to do, and then that's when you get like the dry throat or whatever.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So you I mean, I had a very similar experience, especially when I was away and I was on my own. I never got to a level where I had a tour manager.
I never wanted one.
Yeah, well, a lot of people, I mean, I see a lot of people now they've all got, everyone's got a tour manager.
But I've never really understood, right? So even during this time of drinking, like I never thought it was funny or cool to try and miss flights and get too drunk. I was always up well and at the airport well before my flight. I'd never miss a show. I think I missed like 3 shows, mainly due to illness, and one was a visa reason. Like, I don't understand why you need your mate to come and tell you that you've got to get up.
That's what I was just about to say.
Just set a fucking alarm.
What is the job? Like, I'm not being rude to any tour managers, but I was never big enough to even consider one. But what is the actual role?
Well, I think the main, from what my observation of it, right, is that some of these artists who are on the road all the time, let's say doing 2, 3, potentially 4 shows, let's say they're doing a big tour. You're on your own a lot, and you know what it's like. We were just talking about you sat in the hotel room, bored, bottle of wine, fuck it, let's have another one, let's see what else is going on tonight, let's go out, have a few beers in the pub. If you've got a friend there, you're not alone. You can do stuff together, go to the cinema, go for some nice food, like all those things you can do with a friend. And if you're making enough money, and I think some of these tour managers are making like not
decent
bad
money,
wage, So if you can afford it and you don't like being on your own,
why not? Yeah.
And then why not? But again, I mean,
for me, I never struggled with being on my own, at all. Like, obviously, the drinking stuff, boredom maybe, but kind of, I think I would actually kind of maybe find it more stressful that I had a tour manager, parked down a few doors down in the hotel, and that I would feel like I'd have to go and spend time with them. You know, I would feel that social anxiety more if I had someone with me. And actually being on my own, I can just like go to the gig, zone out, fine, I'm done.
But I think if you handle your own company really well and you don't get lonely, then sweet. But again, that's just my opinion. People obviously do it for a reason. So whether it's to have a friend on the road, or whether it's because you can't fucking put your socks on and you need someone to tie your shoes. I mean, I don't know.
A photographer's quite a good one now.
Photographer's good.
I've
but
seen that
like
one.
and also I would say that, you know, a lot of people use them as a barrier between them and promoters. So, like, for example, if they have something wrong, they don't want to be the asshole to say it. They use their tour manager to kind of be that middleman.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that is.
And I think that's their job. And so for me, that was never a problem. I've never had massive issues, and if I have, I'm okay speaking up about it. And like, I'd never do it in an arsehole way, but like, you know, sort it out. But I think some people find that awkward, and also some people just don't like the responsibility of doing it themselves as well.
Well, imagine if you're like someone like Kink, who's got a fuckload of gear.
Yeah, exactly.
And you walk up to the show, you want all your shit lined up. This is another level, right? You've got levels of this shit, right?
Of course,
you've got someone who just comes along who's speaking to the promoter, making sure your rider's there, making sure the equipment's right, making sure your bottle of vodka's opened, and you've got like passes for your friends. Then you've got a next level up where they're setting your live equipment up for you, making sure that the taxi's on time, or everything in the background's going on. So you've probably got different levels. And you're also talking between 3 lads who were never fucking big enough to ever get a fucking tour manager. So, so we're probably slightly biased.
Exactly. Just on that, you mentioned like social anxiety. Is that something? Did you ever get that when you were traveling, touring? Obviously, meeting so many new people all the time.
I would say that I used to be a real people person. I used to love it, and I used to, you know, I made some really good friends on the road. But I think as I get older, it's actually getting worse. Maybe it's because I've just got less ability to kind of do small talk, or maybe it's just because I'm getting older and getting grumpy as fuck and just can't be arsed. I don't know, but
you've always been a grumpy fucker, man.
Well, yeah, that's true. I think it's something that is actually I'm getting worse with, and it's kind of a weird thing. I used to, I have no problem meeting and talking to people. That doesn't bother me at all. Like, that's fine. I can whatever room you put me in, I can you know, find my way in it.
Yeah.
But I struggle more these days when it's just like one-on-one relationships and you're meeting that person, that promoter. I don't struggle, but I just have less. I think I have less time for it these days than I used to, and I think that's just through being in this business so long. You know, you're in there one day, out the next, and you know, I need more time on my own these days. Like, I never used to sleep before shows. I used to go for dinner with the promoter and whoever else, and then sometimes even just go to the show straight from the start and just go all day. Whereas now, now I normally skip dinner and then just sleep until I have to leave. I think that's I think the social anxiety thing probably comes from withdrawing a little bit and feeling like I'm not as no, maybe I'm not going to say that, but like just, you know, feeling a different level of connection to the people that I'm meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I used to dampen that. I think I spoke about this before, but I would dampen that anxiety with drink.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, massively. Yeah.
So before I go to the show, like my rider, I remember once it was like 2017, 18. I was well in with Defected. I'd done me like first residency in Ibiza. And I remember my mate who come on tour with me sometimes, not a tour manager, just came for the fucking ride. He was a good guy to have there. And he was like, your ride is fucking bullshit, mate. And I was like, what? He went, he just says, and I showed him, it just says, bottle of vodka, no brand, which sometimes I got fucking Glens or whatever, right? Like Tesco's brand.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wrestle it out of the homeless person's arm before the show.
Yeah, here we go. Jackie will love this.
I remember one show. I'm not going to mention where, but I remember it wasn't even Glens. It was like it was Asda's Own or Tesco's. It was a Tesco's or Asda's Own, right? It would just said
they left it in the
it
bottle.
said vodka, and there was no vodka. No mixes.
Oh wow.
No ice.
Oh, nice.
It was just on the side next to the decks.
Wow.
And I had to say something. I was like, I can't drink that, right? Anyway, this is around this time. It was Diva.
I bet you did.
Diva emoji.
What do you mean you can't drink straight vodka?
So yeah, he went back and got me some Glens. So he said this is bullshit. So I went, okay, I'm going to rewrite it. So I thought, let's just fucking go all out. And I didn't know because your agent works for you, right?
Yeah.
Because the agent takes a cut on top, so they work for you. They'll tell the promoters whatever the fuck you want to get. So I wrote bottle of Grey Goose.
Nice.
Bottle of Patron Silver.
No, it's pushing it now.
Yeah, it was keeps going. Obviously mixes and lime and stuff, so like lime and soda. Bottle of coconut water, 6 bottles of Budweiser, and 2 bottles of water.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
right.
it was well better, and I sent it, and I was dead nervous. And I was like, he's going to just email me back going, who the fuck are you? And it worked.
Nice.
Yeah,
and I got it everywhere. So everywhere I went, we had this bottle of vodka and bottle of tequila. And that was, as soon as I got to the show, I was nervous because my anxiety, as I got more into it, like I think, like you said, you get used to like how the promoters work, you know, like you're in and out, all that sort of stuff. So I was already like a bit like, oh, this is like a very, very transactional.
Yeah.
I get in, and then I would dampen that anxiety we were just talking about with a couple of shots of tequila.
For sure, man. Like, alcohol, it like instantly made me feel a bit more at ease. I got into a real bad thing where. and I was doing it when I was not touring as well. When I get to an airport, as soon as I get to an airport, I'd sit down and have a drink every time. Didn't matter if it was 5 a.m. in the morning or 10 p.m. I would always sit down and it'd be the first thing I did, because that environment to me just became an extension of like my drinking sphere, I suppose. And I think that a lot of the reasons I did that was, like you say, I could turn up and I'd already dampened those like feelings of anxiety, and you know, had a basis to build off, you know, of like feeling a bit more confident or whatever, however you want to say what alcohol does. But it was definitely, that was 100% for me, alcohol, and then it turned to like bits of you know Coke or whatever, also then added on to what I thought I needed to get over those hurdles.
That was the same for me. Just drink, just for that confidence, and then as soon as it was drink, it was cocaine.
We're seeing a pattern here, man.
Yeah, we have.
Everyone we spoke to pretty much in terms of artists on and off the podcast have the same story. They dampen those anxiety feelings with drink, and then they get too drunk, so they do the coke. And also, it's a feeling of acceptance in this thing that you've been in for years as a punter. When you used to go clubbing, you're in the club, you're doing drugs, but then when you become the center of attention, it's all heightened.
But I also think there's this like myth, when I do think it's a myth now, that the DJ is just on a constant party. Do you know what I mean? Like their tour life is just a constant party, and I think that it is kind of. I think living as a touring DJ, you are very devoid of actual reality. Yeah. Because you get a level of self-importance which is not measurable in any way other than outside of this small bubble, and also, you know, as a punter, you think that person in front of you is always on it, drugs or drinking or what they're always going to after, it's their life and soul of the party kind of thing. But actually in reality, you might do that for a few years when you first break through, but most people aren't like that, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think that's the pressure. Like that for me was the downfall, is that just not being able to then have that off switch, you know, after just been partying and doing gear for every single gig. Obviously when that become an addiction and a problem, I was like, shit, like how am I going to combat this?
Yeah, completely. I mean, with the drugs thing, I was lucky I never took it home, really. Like it was always very much of an out thing.
Yeah.
But for drinking, definitely, 100%. It was just constant.
And you're just thrown into it as well. There's no preparation for, you know, for being an artist, really, is there?
No.
Wait, one of the other issues I think is this drug and alcohol fueled sort of environment that we're in it works from the top down. So I'm not mentioning names, and I'm going to talk broadly here, but management and agents and everyone, they're all fucking doing it, right?
Massively,
and no one talks about it. No one, and people who do drugs look down at other people who do drugs, and I find that crazy. You know?
Yeah, it's wild.
It's wild. No one's talking about the issues with drug use in the music industry. Like, you'll go to ADE, or we've been to Miami Music Conference. It's another thing where the whole industry gets together and everyone's pretending to be really professional, but the majority of people are just there partying.
Yeah, of course. The music industry is a weird industry. Like, when I speak about it, like with my friends, the amount of who have got real jobs. Let's be honest. It's this level of a bit of unprofessionalism is kind of just accepted. It doesn't like, in whatever way you want to say that, it's just accepted in the music industry. Like the amount of meetings that I have made, and then either me or the other person just cancels like 10 minutes before. I'm just like, it's just accepted. And when I tell someone that, like, what the fuck is going on here? How do you get anything done?
Or you have the meeting, and then minutes after they go, "You got any gear then?"
It does happen.
Straight on it. And,
every meeting's over a beer as well.
But that's the thing. I don't think people in the music industry, like you were talking about, the person in the crowd who looks at the DJ and sees this person who is just partying after partying, but because that person who's having that thought has been to work all week. They've maybe been saving for a month to go to that party to see their favourite DJ, and they see that guy is like, oh, you must do that every night, every Friday, Saturday.
Little do they know I'm watching Midsummer Murder in my PJs.
In his slippers.
Yeah. Oh, mate, I've got some cracking slippers.
Sorry, I just had a thought of slippers then, because I actually need to get myself some.
M&S, mate.
Yeah, the winter's crept in on it. So, what have you got any advice then for youngsters coming up, especially just just talking about drugs and alcohol? Have you got any advice for?
Well, I mean, I think I can give advice. Whether or not they'll heed it or not, I don't know. I mean, something that I would say is, and it's going back to what we were just talking about, treat this as a job as much as physically possible, because it's your passion, it's your hobby, it's your love, and then suddenly, very quickly, it becomes a job, and a lot of people don't deal with that well, me included, like we were talking about.
All of us in here, I think.
And so really have the mindset going in that it's not just a party, man. This is your job. And you see a lot of people burn out. I mean, we've seen people that we both know have real problems with their mental issues, and
we've lost some people.
Completely. And this industry can hit you hard in the face, and it's a tough industry to maintain any level of kind of income and relevancy, which is a huge thing these days. Everything's so much quicker than it was. If you go into it thinking with your head turned on, not about the drugs and the booze, but thinking about it as a business, as a brand. I look back on my past, and I know that I've missed out some huge opportunities. Like, I should have set up my own night earlier, should have maintained with my first record label more, like put more effort into it. But I was more concerned about just my DJing and my production, and quite frankly getting on it and off my face all the time, that I never really focused on those bits of it, which I really should have done. So going in, my advice is always think of it like a business. When you get that little bit of heat, think about how you can pivot and turn that into something other than just you DJing, because DJs have a shelf life, apart from like 10, 20, even them, really, probably at some point they have peaks and troughs, even though if they're not as like harsh as when you're younger. So just think about this as how you can actually use everything to your advantage, and not just take it for granted that those opportunities are always going to be there, because they're not.
That's such an important thing, because we've spoke about this before, but when I had my first track, or first big track, not the first track that did pretty well, I thought I'd made it, like, full stop.
You think it's going to be there forever?
And it's done. And I'm going to get booked, and all the agents are going to want me forever.
Yeah.
And then soon you realise that's not the fucking case.
No. It's a business.
It's a business, yeah. You're a commodity.
Yeah. And the first time someone rejects you, like a booking agent or a promoter or whatever, you take it really personally, really, really personally. Yeah. And it's only over time that you start to realise that those people might like you as a person. They don't hate you. I had a feeling that everyone hated me because when they stopped booking me. But it's not they don't hate you. It's just, their business is making money, and if you're not going to sell as many tickets as you used to, it's just a harsh reality. Do you know what I mean? They can't just book you because you partied with them like one night and you had a great time. It's got to make business sense. People are here to make money, and I think because it's one of those businesses that is a hobby or a passion, people forget that and they take it so much more personally than they would do in other things, maybe.
Yeah, of course. Well, because it is personal though. Because you like you said before, you are the brand, aren't you?
Oh yeah, massively. Yeah, but the only person that you've got to blame for not being as big or as popular is yourself.
Yeah, of course.
But you're trying to separate those two. It's almost trying to develop your emotional intelligence to realize that people aren't booking you because you're not selling tickets. It's not because they don't like you.
Exactly, and that's the difference.
You're not getting people in the door. So why would they spend however much money on you when they can get this other person for cheaper who is current, who's going to sell tickets?
And completely. And something I would actually say as well is going back a little bit about what you were saying, how every management and booker will want you forever. A lot of people think that once they've got a booking agent or a manager, they don't have to put the work in anymore, and they leave it all to those guys to do it. Actually, once you've got a manager and a booking agent, that's when the work really fucking starts.
It really does, Because the agents are going right to the managers, what's he got coming up? Yeah. And even with the new agencies, when I'd moved agencies before, the agents replied saying, give me a list of every single gig you've got booked in, every single release, what tracks are you making at the moment, which labels are you trying to pitch to. They want to know everything because they're like, if I'm going to invest my time in this person, I need to make sure they've got at least some longevity. Like you said before.
You need a plan.
We need a plan because longevity in this business is fucking short unless you're a Roger Sanchez or you're a fucking
Jamie Jones.
But this is another thing. I don't know whether I was speaking to you about this. Sorry to digress.
That's all right.
But there are some artists who never released, or no, haven't released in a long time.
Like Michael Corolla.
Yeah.
Or Corolla.
Yeah.
Or other artists like that who don't release. But let's not use Corolla because he's just music on. He's got a massive brand now.
But that's a bit like going on from what I was saying. He saw that he was getting popular, started music on, didn't start it under his own name. So it might come to a point where he can't play it anymore because he's too old. But he'll always have that brand.
Yeah. But Jamie with Paradise, Jamie obviously, I'm sure this is how it works with both most brands. But you now charge a set fee for the brand.
Yeah.
Let's say, I don't know, like a Glastonbury stage, Paradise stage. You charge for the brand, and then you don't even have to fucking play. You can just call it Paradise, and you can just book the artists, and then you take whatever, which is probably the majority of the fee, and then you pay the artist, and that becomes a business, and that comes full circle to what you were saying before about don't just focus so much on you and your DJ and your productions. Try and create a business. Try and create enterprise is a big word, but try and create something around what you're doing because everything's got like a shelf life, you say,
and try and make as many connections as possible as well. Like it's all well and good being the life and soul of the party, but if a booker sees you like that and they, first impressions are a lot, and they don't respect you after that, they're not going to want to work with you in the future. Like your actions have consequences, and you have to stand by those.
Absolutely.
We were speaking about that last time actually with WAF about, or might have been with Chris, about certain artists who are now doing really well, who one of their attributes is they were just networking. They went to the parties even when they weren't playing. There's some artists I mentioned last time who would just come to the gig, they'd meet the promoters even if they weren't on the lineup, and they'd be there, they'd be present.
Well, I mean,
and it's so important.
I mean, look at like Jamie Roy. That was his whole thing. He was omnipresent. He was fucking everywhere, right? And he was just starting to finally get his dues, get paid back, and get somewhere. And obviously, what happened to him was awful, horrendous. But he's a great example of that.
Yeah. Well, that's a tough one. That
it's horrible.
Talking about Jamie, he was such a special person, and he was there every time. And you're right, he was just getting to that point where he was everywhere. Yeah, he had that big tune out on Patrick's label.
Yeah, he had a whole album signed to Ultra. We were working on it together. It was crazy.
So this is coming back again to what we're talking about in terms of new artists coming through. That's one who was taken way too early, who let that party in a way, and obviously I don't want to talk too much about it, but the party was big for Jamie. He was always at the parties. He never said no to an afters.
No,
he was always that. But be that with that sort of personality. There's. I compare myself to Jamie in a lot of ways in terms of. I wanted to be this. I was the life of the party in so many ways, but it was so detrimental to my health. And it was I've said this to Sean. If it wasn't for COVID, I don't know where I would be in terms of my health right now. Because I wouldn't have had to pivot. I wouldn't have had to do something else. And I was, drinking a lot and essentially addicted to drugs as well to an extent. You don't want to say you're addicted, but
it's social. It can be a social addiction.
I think addiction really is there a problem? Not like I was addicted to coke, but I didn't have a physical dependency. It's just that it was getting in the way of of my career and my social life.
It's all well and good, like you're 18 and you got a bit of like pub grub down the boozer with your mates. Do you know what I mean? A cheap whatever. And for that's I don't see really a problem with any of that kind of stuff, But it's when, like you say, it starts affecting your relationships or your career or like actually just things that are in your immediate surroundings.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So. On to the funny on my notes now. The next question is, what's your craziest party?
The afters. Because it's the afters. We have to ask. So have you got any like crazy stories from being on the road that particularly stand out in your memory?
There is one.
Yes.
So I used to play a lot in Ireland, right? And I was doing pretty well there actually, and I always used to end up going back to a student house's like after party or whatever. And then this one time I was there, can't remember what I was doing, probably fucking everything. And one of the guys, because I was so fucked, convinced me that he was like a priest or something, ended up like baptizing me in the sink in this fucking like student hall's bathroom. It was fucking hilarious.
I was not expecting that with you.
It was there was a video for it at one point as well.
So
but
you got baptised.
Well, I didn't. I don't remember any of it. I just saw the video after.
Someone dunked your head in the sink.
Yeah, it was crazy. It's hilarious.
That's fucking mint.
That's probably the worst. That's like, the worst one.
The worst? That sounds like the fucking best.
I mean, it was hilarious. It was fucking. I think it's hilarious, but that's probably the most ridiculous thing. I mean, there's probably more, but I just don't remember it.
That's good enough for me.
I can't really top that.
At the afters.
I can't really top that. Really.
I mean, we probably all felt like we were baptised at one point.
So, yeah.
But then physically being put, I mean, we've how many times have we all been sat in the bath at an afters? Have you ever sit in the bath? Why did we used to do that? You get in the bath and like you'd have your legs hang over. It was perfect, but never been baptised.
I used to love doing shit like that. Yeah. And like if I could go back to 25, I'd definitely still be going to afters. I used to love them.
Yeah, they were class.
Couldn't do it now.
All right, yeah. So you were talking about the label as well. Tell us a little bit about that. What plans for the future have you got for the label? What's the label called? Sorry, by the way, for the listeners.
It's called Dumb Safari, and it's. In the past, I've had a couple of labels, but I've always run them with other people, and then for one reason or another, it's kind of finished. Although we're restarting maybe one or two of them, one of them. But the new one is Dumb Safari. It's kind of a lot of it is. It is my own releases when I can't. I always used to get frustrated that I was sending demos out that I really loved, but because labels these days have a very tunnel vision of what they want to release, they wouldn't put it out, right? So I thought Dumb Safari, great, just for me to release my kind of like more off-kilter records or just records I, felt like weren't going to fit anywhere. Yeah. And it's kind of turned into more of like I'm signing a lot of younger artists now. I'm actually I'm a teacher for a thing called Mixmasters, where we go off and we do these retreats in Ibiza and stuff, and I've ended up kind of signing a couple of those guys to the label as well.
Oh, wicked.
And giving them a first shot. I just sorting a couple of those out now, so it's kind of turned into this thing where I'm running it on my own, but Wouter S from Amsterdam is a kind of a big part of it now. He's doing some A&R and stuff, so I'm kind of as cliche and cheesy as it sounds. I'm trying to just bring together a group of people that I actually like as artists and as people, and just work with people that I kind of have had some relationship with in the past. I am signing other stuff, but it's just trying to, like, you know, we had the ADE party. The plan is to hopefully, we've got number 10 coming out in December.
Wicked.
For the first year, which isn't bad, and then after that it's just to kind of kick on, maybe try and do another ADE thing next year, maybe do something in the UK as well, just build it slowly, a bit like what I was talking about before, rather than just rushing in and like throwing loads of money at it and being like, right, this has to be big now. I kind of just wanted to build organically, and if I feel like if I can get some of the artists that I think are really good while they're still kind of coming up, then we can hopefully grow the label and them at the same time.
Well, using like Paradise as an example is perfect for that, because you've got like Jamie and Richie and all those guys who started when they started Paradise years ago, and then they just stuck together. They let it grow organically with the guys from the start, which is exactly how you want a night to grow organically, right? And you kind of got that community when everyone grows at the same pace.
I think it's really important now. Like, you look at lineups now, and it's either like the obvious names, or it's a crew of people like Solid Grooves, or like you say, the Paradise crew are quite like tight, or even like the Gorgon City lads have got their realm, like little roster of people. A lot of the nights now are kind of backed by another brand, rather than just like, you know, a night at Sankey's, like where they just book loads of people. It does feel now that the landscape is a little bit different when it comes to like people playing together just seemingly all the time and their little crews. And I think it's important as well, like you say, grow together, because I can promote it as much as possible. But, you know, some 18-year-old doesn't know who the fuck I am, probably. And, like, to have someone else who's more on their level, one of their peers, promote it, means probably a lot more to them than me just shouting about it all the time. So it's about using different avenues of, like, promoting, but still keeping it in a tight-knit group of people.
What artists are the up and coming?
There's a girl in America called Colour Love who's just released on Desert Hearts. We've got an EP coming from her with a good like Daniel Orpey remix, who we just agreed on that on the way in actually, and then a few other like youngsters that we got. I'm coming up again in a few weeks, and then we've got a speed garage guy from America called FX Logic and stuff, and then that's back with a remix by me. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get like these newer people and then get bigger remixes.
Perfect.
We had a guy called Calypso Jet come out with a remix by Tiptoes, who's an artist who I'm really like. I love his kind of vibes at the moment. So that's kind of like trying to take each release as it comes rather than stick to one formula style-wise.
That's wicked. It sounds like you're doing something a bit different, which is nice to see. You know, there's not like just doing the same formula. It's good.
Just on that, I was just where did the name come from?
Well, actually, I released a track called Dumb Safari years ago with a friend of mine called Sam Russo.
I know Sam.
Yeah. He's now doing construction and stuff like full time. He's no longer. Yeah, he's got some wild stories. It's just clicked. I remember some of his tracks that he used to make, Sam. It was good. We lived together for 6 months in Bournemouth as well, actually. He was a good pal. I've not seen him for long. But anyway, that was just a name that we came up with for that track, and it's always stuck with me. And I thought, you know, Dumb Safari, I've got this artist doing loads of kind of like stupid looking giraffes and shit that we're going to do. So like, it's kind of like, I feel like aesthetically, there's a lot of stuff to use as well, which I think is really important now.
Well, I'm excited to hear more about that label. But is there anything else you want to plug before we wrap this up?
Not really. Like the label, obviously Dumb Safari, and then next year I've just signed to Defected for 6 singles.
Yeah, boy,
which should be nice. And I'm just working on some of my other aliases as well, which are kind of just in the background. So. Which I won't talk about much because there's nothing planned yet, but a story's starting to come together for one of them, so we'll see.
Wicked. Well, mate, thanks for coming down.
No, thanks for having me, man.
Great chat, and there's some really interesting points there, especially for like up and coming artists, and even artists who are current who want to know that they're not on their own in terms of the party and stuff. It's important to talk about this.
You can feel real lonely on the road, like no one else going through it, but actually the minute you start talking to someone, and it's important you talk to someone on the same level as you, if you're honest, because they're the ones. It's important to have those conversations.
Of course. Well, thanks again, mate.
Brilliant.
Nice one.
Thank you.
Nice one, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Does anybody know where the